Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast, where we're continuing our series on breaking down the Raiders via position group. We've already talked in detail about wide receivers, and then we dealt with running backs. Today, we're going to look at the tight end position. Very important discussion that we're going to have here today. I'm looking forward to this in great detail. First of all, I'm looking forward to it to discuss with you kind of how Chip Kelly's offense utilizes a TE, but also Chip Kelly's been honest about he likes to morph his system around the talent he has. Now, that doesn't mean change your system, but um it means to alter it and change it. So, quick example. Zamir White, second half of 2023, was the best running back in the NFL, just crushed it. And that was within a zone offensive scheme we saw from, Bo Hardegree and what the Raiders wanted to do offensively. And yeah. Then last year, Luke Getsy comes in and tries to do the outside zone, the stretching of the zone. Didn't work for Zamir. Now, Chip Kelly likes to run that zone. And that's traditionally what he has done. And so that fits in with Zamir, possibly looking to beat Sincere McCormick for that third running back spot, or maybe even eventually supersede or Raheem Mostert potentially. Not saying he has, but I'm saying potentially. So when you look at Chip Kelly's scheme, he really is a master of the tight end. I don't know if anybody not named Zamir White should have been more happy with the hiring of Chip Kelly than Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. So here is traditionally how Chip Kelly likes to use his tight ends. First of all, you're going to notice the tight end coming in motion a lot. He loves to move his tight ends to create mismatches with linebackers and safeties, just doing some unique things. It is very important when you are a Chip Kelly tight end. You do not have the privilege of being just a pass catching tight end or a blocking tight end. You have to be an extremely versatile tight end. You have to be able to block and you got to be able to catch. That's not traditionally how a lot of tight ends work. So let me go back to this past draft. Tyler Warren was a guy many considered the best tight end, and he was the best receiving tight end. Tremendous player, great player. Wasn't the best blocker, although he wasn't bad, wasn't the best. Colston Loveland was a guy that the Raiders loved him. They liked Tyler, but they loved Colston Loveland. And you may remember I reported to you if he were to fall to the top of the second round, like Jack Bech did, they would have nabbed him. They had a first round grade on him. Um, Again, it was kind of like Omarion Hampton and Ashton Jeanty. 70% of the people had Tyler Warren with a number one grade, 30% had Colston Loveland. I was led to believe, and I do believe it, that the Raiders actually probably had a higher grade on Colston than they did Tyler. Why? Colston was big. He had a huge receiving range, great blocker, great receiver. And I just made you aware that while I didn't think they were looking for tight end, if Colston was there at the top of the second round, I 100% believe the Raiders would have nabbed him. 100%. Now, that's just a guy that had a first round grade also. So who knows how that would have played there. But the point was they love the tight end. Now, earlier this offseason, there was a report, which was factual, that Michael Mayer was potentially available for trade. I don't know how that leaked. Um, I have a suspicion, doesn't matter. It wasn't anything nefarious, but the Raiders weren't shopping Michael Mayer. And I told you that they were not shopping him. But that anyone not named Max Crosby, and even Max Crosby, if you could have got a Patrick Mahomes, but was available for trade. They really like Michael Mayer. They believe in the 23 and 24 draft, they got the two best tight ends. Now, everyone is aware, Michael Mayer had some injury issues in year one, missed some time last year for some personal issue. None of the personal issue stuff is holding him back. None. And no need to get into it. It doesn't matter. People are going to believe whatever people want to believe, and that's fine. But that was not a concern. So now the Raiders come in. Now, last year, the team kept 3 tight ends on the initial 53-man roster. I believe that is still the case, that they'll keep 3. Tight ends just lend to a lot of versatility. Chip Kelly likes to use them a lot. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And number one, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Brock Bowers, the best tight end in the National Football League. And that's knowing there are some great ones. Hey, I know Travis Kelce's great. I don't think Travis Kelce is in the league of Brock Bowers. I don't believe that. I believe if you asked the Chiefs right now if you would trade Travis Kelce, of course they would because of age. But if you were to ask them, I don't think they would admit it. But if you were to ask them, would you take Travis Kelce in his prime over Brock Bowers? I think they would take Brock. He just does a lot more that Travis doesn't. So let me tell you some things that make Brock unique. Number one, Brock is a committed wide receiver. Absolutely committed wide receiver. You can split him out in 5 receiver sets. You can have him running a complete route tree from a 3-point technique next to a tackle. Now, if you're not a football, let's say you like football, but you don't understand the game. A 3-point technique is when you're down with your hand in the dirt, meaning both feet and you have a hand connected to the ground. That's why when you in a 3-point stance, excuse me. So when you hear a 4-point stance, it's when you see guys with 2 hands on the ground and 2 feet on the ground. He runs a complete route tree out of a 3-point stance. So that means he's coming up. He's not standing up and running from a complete motion. That speaks to you about his fluidity. That speaks to you about his hip movement, the way he's able to move his body. It is absolutely unbelievable when you put in Brock Bowers' video to watch that young man run. It's special. It's special. And he has a skill set that you're not able to just work and develop. You either have those bodily gifts from God or you don't. That ability to bend. A good friend of Shannon and I's is a coach on another team that played the Raiders this year. And we happened to be eating a meal with him recently. And he talked about, he said, the more I watch Brock, he's a defensive coach. He said, I turned to one of my coaches and said, I think that guy would be one of the best edge rushers. He's got all of the ability to bend, move, everything in his body. Now, the man wasn't suggesting moving Brock. It is a testimony to his ability. Then you go and you look at Brock Bowers as a blocker. Now, I am very open. I have an affinity for Brock. I like him a lot. He's mature beyond his age, extremely mature. You want to talk to Brock about himself? He's very quiet, very, very humble. You want to talk about his family? You want to talk about his teammates? He'll chat you up, or as Max will say, he'd chop it up with you. I like him character-wise as a human being. I love that he works very, very hard. It is not uncommon to see him put in extra work. He's in the film room all the time. This is a guy that works with an aggressive style of work ethic. He's tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. Now, having said that, so to be that good of a blocker and that good of a pass catcher is phenomenal. But then there are other things that he does. You know, you can move him back to an H-back slot, almost put him in as a fullback if you needed to in front of Ginty. Then you're running him routes out of the backfield. And so he is a complete tight end. I think this is still a thing. I don't play video games, but I know my children do, but I know players make a big deal about their Madden rating. And I had one guy tell me if there's ever a tight end with a 99 rating, it should be Brock Bowers. And the guy's only in his sophomore, hasn't even played a sophomore season game yet in the NFL. So the Raiders have him, which is a phenomenal thing. Second on the depth chart, Michael Mayer. And Michael is a very, very good tight end. He's not Brock Bowers. And in fairness, Brock Bowers comes in as a rookie and nobody's him. He's a unicorn. I don't know that I've ever said this before. I don't believe I can think of two people I've said it before now that I think and process it. After a rookie year, this is only the third play I've ever said it, but I think Brock Bowers is destined for a gold jacket. And that's almost sacrilegious to say that after a freshman season in the NFL, a rookie year. But he showed every tool last year. You know, some rookies look, for example, let's use Jayden Daniels. He looked phenomenal as a rookie quarterback with a lot of gaps in his game. I don't think he's destined for a gold jacket. If he continues to develop, I think he is. But he did a lot of great stuff last year, a lot of great stuff. But I don't think he showed every tool. I'd ask you, are there things that Brock Bowers can do to improve? Yes. But did you identify any weaknesses in his game? Not one. Okay. So Michael Mayer comes in. First year, struggled with some physical issues. Last year, had some personal issues. Okay. This is a money year for him. I talked about it the other day when my money year candidates. He's going to have to poop or get off the pot. He's got to have a money year in year 3. But here's the deal with Mayer. Can he improve? Can he stay with his blocks longer? Yes. Very good blocker. Better than most tight ends at blocking. I clearly put Michael Mayer in the top half of NFL tight ends. Top half. He's not a top 10 guy. Brock's one. But he's in the top half of the tight ends. Need to hold his block longer. I love him as a pass catcher. I think he can get a little bit more crisp on his route tree. And I think there are some things he can do there. But he's a solid number 2. And quite frankly, I think there are teams that would like to have him as a 1 as long as he can stay on the field. Remember, the best ability is availability. But you got a Brock Bowers that comes in, and he is a top tier, top half of the NFL tight end. And I think you can see him with the ability to develop into elite tight end. Not elite? Certainly could be. You certainly have seen enough from him to say he's got the skill set to develop. Now, Jayden Daniels, I can tell you right now, I think he's a top 12 quarterback in the NFL, probably a top 10. In fact, I think that's too critical. I would have him in the top 10. But being a top 10 quarterback doesn't make you destined for a gold jacket. Certainly means you're headed in that direction. Same thing with Mayer. I think he has the potential of being he is a top half. I think he has the potential of being a top 10. Not there yet. So you got to stick with his blocks longer. make sure he sometimes when he comes up off the line, he can get a little high. Got to keep a little bit lower, keep his hands out in front of him, stick with that block a little bit longer. But remember, it doesn't mean he's a bad player, and the Raiders are thrilled to have him. Thrilled to have him. And I think if they would have moved him, you maybe would have saw a move for a Colston Loveland, who I think is going to be a really, really good tight end year one. I don't think he's Brock, but I think Colston Loveland has a shot of being a top 10 tight end this year. And again, I don't think that Michael is there. I think he's a top half, not a top 10. Then you come to a guy that the Raiders signed, Ian Thomas. He's played 8 years, and he's from Indiana University. He's a Hoosier. Played 8 years in Carolina, started, I think it was 2 games last year, but after his 5th game got injured and missed the rest of the year. This is an intriguing guy. They like him. And there's a lot to him to like. It's not like he's been an all-pro, but he's found ways to stick around. If you're going to be the third tight end on any NFL team, you've got to be a solid special teamer, and he is. But you got to offer something because Chip Kelly's going to use you. And there's a lot of interest there. And this guy brings a wealth of experience, and he's a good guy to have in the locker room. He's a consummate pro, a real solid human being. And there's a lot of intrigue with him. Obviously, Mayer, and if there's no trades, we know Brock is solid. I think Mayer, while Brock isn't going anywhere, just like Ashton wasn't, or Jacoby or whatever. But Brock's not going anywhere. I think Mayer is a very solid to make the roster unless they did something unique. But I think Colston is the leader for the third tight end. Colston. I think Ian is the leader for the third tight end spot. Not guaranteed. I think he's there. Somebody's going to have to beat him. But this guy's intriguing because Mayer and Bowers are both young. Bowers is extremely mature, plays like a 10-year vet. But I think there's something intriguing about having a guy who's so committed to special teams and intrigues them with his physical skill set. Then there's a guy on the roster from Florida, Justin Shorter. He's 6'5", big. He brings some intrigue here. He brings some intrigue. I think he brings a strong want to in special teams, which you have to be the third guy. He's developmental, needs to develop. But I like Shorter's game. Go back and just look at especially some things he did at Florida, and I can see why the Raiders are intrigued by him. I can see the mad scientist on the offensive side of the ball. We've always called Patrick Graham that, and he is. But I can see that mad scientist side of the ball with Chip Kelly trying to dream of ways to use Shorter. So he's an intriguing guy. I don't know that I would say that at this point I would guess he would beat out Ian Thomas, but he might. I think he would have to beat him out clearly, but that's going to be a really nice battle. And then again, I only expect him to take 3, but a guy that may have a shot at this third one and maybe have a shot to beat Thomas out, even a little bit better shot than Shorter, although I'm not predicting that. This is a new signer, Kadir Ismail. I think for sure he'll get on the practice squad. But this is a guy, you ever heard the old saying, they're a jack of many trades, a master of none? That's kind of Ismail. A jack of all trades, but a master of none. But he's just good enough at versatility, at blocking, special teams, receiving, just good enough that you can say, man, if you can park him on your practice squad, he may turn into something. He may be a developmental guy. He's going to be running your scout offense, but he's also going to get a ton of reps, ton of practice, and you really might be able to develop him into somebody. I am going to tell you, and I have not witnessed this, but I was told he's kind of a poor man's Darren Waller. There's just a lot to really like about him. I don't know anything about the off-field sobriety issues with which, God bless Darren, he was able to get. I'm not saying that. I'm not implying that at all. Just his skill set. He really reminds a lot of people of a poor man's Darren Waller. So while I don't think he's going to make the roster, he could beat out Shorter and he could beat out Thomas for that third spot. Kadir is a developmental guy, but he intrigues a lot of people. There's a buzz about him that he could be something. Even when Darren was on the practice squad at his previous team before the Raiders, there was a buzz about Waller. Same thing here with Kadir. Now, this is a position I know the Raiders have looked at free agency, and I know that they've looked at a potential possibility of a trade. Okay. So as cuts come and everything else, if a Thomas maybe isn't shining or a Shorter or maybe a Kadir is developing but still not there, or maybe the same with Shorter, I could look at if somebody got cut, a big name got cut, or even a potential trade. So the tight end, if we're just predicting the 53 right now, I say three people, and I've got Brock and Mayer. And Thomas would be my third if I had to predict today. I'm not making my 53-man prediction today. I'm just giving to you what the overview of who's on the roster right now. But there's some interesting depth there, and a position where you only keep three guys, to have one of them being the best in the league and the other being a top half of the league. And again, if I had to put him in the top half, talking about Mayer, I'd put him at probably, right over the midline, but he's got that skill set to develop higher. I think this of the three positions we've looked at right now, experience wise, I think you're very happy where your tight ends are. Obviously, Jacoby's very, very good, but your wide receiver room is really thin with youth. And then obviously we looked at running back. Genty, very, very good, but has never done a rep in the NFL. Zamir was best running back second half of 23. Then they changed schemes on him. Sincere was really good before an injury. I think there's some good experience there, but there's no depth. I think of the three groups we've had to review right now, most experience right here. Right here. And I think the Raiders got a really interesting tight end group, but needs some experience. I've shared this story with you before. Roy Rogers, the famous cowboy, used to say the best thing for a young horse is a wet saddle blanket. What's that mean? Just lots of reps, lots of experience, lots of hard work. We're going to find out. But I think this is a very, very fascinating group. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. We're going to continue this evaluation. We'll get on that with you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.